Hello, my name is Ben Stockton, and I am a Year 10 boy at Christ College. My investigative journalism topic is cricket dying in New Zealand schools? During this investigative journey, I interviewed Cooper Godfrey, a student at Christ College, Hugo Ensor, a cricket player at Christ College, Joe Stockton, a teacher at St Margaret's, who is also my mum, James Stockton.
Cooper, why don't you like
played cricket, and he is also my dad.
Cooper, why don't you like cricket?
I don't like cricket because I find it very boring. You spend all day standing in a field and there is not much action. I would rather spend my weekends spending time with friends and family, doing things that I enjoy much more than cricket. I also think it's quite a boring game, like you just throw the ball and the other guy hits it. I just think it's a very boring game.
Thank you, Cooper. There are lots of students at Christ College and other schools in New Zealand that are stopping cricket because it takes all day and they find it very boring. They are also moving to rowing because it doesn't take all day and it helps them build upper body muscle for rugby or other sports. I don't think people hate cricket, but they just don't like that it takes up a lot of their weekends. I think people like shorter formats of cricket like T20s and T10s and backyard cricket. I just don't think people like playing longer formats of cricket that take up days and there is not much action.
Hello, Hugo. Why do you think so many people are quitting cricket?
Well, I think many people are quitting cricket because it's like a boring sport in my opinion, but well, not really for me. But I think some people find it's boring, and because it's so long, it takes the whole day. I have many friends that have quit just because of that, and have gone to different sport.
Why do you still play cricket?
I still play cricket because I enjoy it. It's just a fun game, in my opinion. I've only been playing for like 4 years, and I just love the sport. I like how the sound of the bat off the how the ball hits the bat. Sounds nice. The strategy behind every delivery. It's thrilling for me. It teaches me discipline, teamwork, and patience. On the field or batting, even bowling. It builds friendships, in my opinion, and it gives me purpose. And that's why I love cricket, not just to win, but to grow and love the game.
Do you think that cricket is dying in New Zealand schools?
Yes, I definitely agree with that statement. I think that because in year 9 there was 2 teams, but now this year there's only 1 team. Even like all my friends that I played with in that team is just gone now. It's not the best.
Why do you think less and less people are playing cricket?
Just because of how boring it is for them, in my opinion. That's all I've heard from my friends.
Do you think that it's too long?
Yes, I agree. I think it should be shorter, so I
More.
have more free time.
Yeah, okay. Alright, thank you, Hugo.
Hello, Joe. Can you tell me about cricket at a girls' school?
Hi, I work at St Margaret's and we have a really strong and growing cricket programme. We have quite a long tradition of cricket at St Margaret's, with the first game dating back to 1931. And there's actually loads of different cricket opportunities for students, whether they are new entrants or all the way through to the seniors. So at a senior level, we have 3 competitive teams with first 11, second 11 and third 11, a dedicated year 7-8 team, year 5-6 team. And then for our juniors, we have a large group of students who take part weekly in a smash cricket skills session. It's really super fun and very popular, particularly as they get coached by some of their older sisters, which makes it really popular. We've also had a lot of success with our cricketers. We've got several players currently playing for Canterbury Rep teams, and we had a number of players that were invited to play in the South Island Under-15 Cup in Dubai, and also old girls that play for Canterbury and have also played for the White Ferns. So it's a really big program at St Margaret's.
Why do you think more girls are playing cricket?
I think it's very, very popular, and definitely on the rise. We currently have over 100 girls at St Margaret's taking part. I think it's the opportunity to learn new skills, and also they get to engage in teamwork with their peers. We have really, really amazing coaches and dedicated staff to support them, and that enables them to form lasting memories. It's something that they're really passionate about.
What was cricket at school like?
Cricket was by far the biggest summer sport. So I was at Christ College from 1990 to 1994, and I would say particularly in those junior years, so what we used to call third form and fourth form, I think you call it year 9 and year 10 these days. Cricket was by far the biggest sport. We would have had at least 5-6 teams per year. So it was a pretty big deal. I would say tennis was probably number 2. Not a lot of kids did rowing in sort of year 9 and year 10. But cricket was pretty big.
What do you think about cricket as a parent at Christ College?
Well, my younger son absolutely loves cricket, which is great. But very surprised to see how few kids actually play cricket particularly in year 9 and year 10. As I said earlier, there were a lot of kids that played back in my day, a very long time ago, obviously. But so year 9 and year 10 struggling to get 2 teams together, which I think is a little bit sad, and kind of talks to the fact that it seems that cricket is sort of dying at sort of schoolboy level, which is a real shame. So,
thank you.
In basketball, hustle is everything. Grit is glorified and pain is often invisible. When injuries are ignored, when young players are told to shake it off, to push through swelling, sprains, or even worse, what's really at stake. As a Year 11 student here at Christ College, I see it firsthand. On the court, in training, in our own teams, young athletes give everything they have. But how much is too much? Hi, my name is Will Thoning, and today I'm asking the hard question. One that affects me and my teammates. Are we being pushed too far when it comes to injuries? In basketball, hustle is everything. Grit is glorified and pain is often invisible. But when injuries are ignored, when young players are told to shake it off, to push through swelling, sprains, or even worse, what's really at stake? As a Year 11 student here at Christ College, I see it firsthand. On the court, in training, in our own teams, young athletes give everything they have. But how much is too much? Today, I'm asking the hard question, one that affects me and my teammates. Are we being pushed too far when it comes to injuries? Formal return to play protocols after injuries?
We do. It's generally dependent on what the injury is. So, for example, if it's a concussion, it's very clear return to play protocols around the length of time a player needs to be out of the game for, and the process around gradually reintroducing them to physical activity.
What's your policy when there's a conflict between performance goals and player health?
We put boys' well-being or their health at the forefront. So one of the important things to remember in that conversation is the fact that we're process driven rather than outcome driven, meaning we do sport for reasons like...
Honestly, the policy is balance is better. We don't want to push the boys too hard. Obviously listen to their bodies. If they're hurting, stop. It just depends on how they're feeling.
Are coaches required to have training in injury prevention and concussion management?
Well, they might not necessarily have training in injury prevention, but they'll have a basic understanding around injury treatment. So all the teaching staff at college do first aid training on a regular basis. So once every 2 years, we need to do a refresher course in that. That's one of the reasons why we have a teacher as a manager with each of the teams that we have. And then the question, concussion, it's the same thing. So in terms of the concussion, it's part of our first aid training.
How do you ensure the athletic environment prioritizes safety over pressure?
I think we just ensure it by making sure the boys know it's a sport and we just want to have fun, enjoy it as a team, and also depending on the team you're in, like for instance the senior A will be more performance and outcome based, so we will push those boys differently than how we push other boys.
I asked several athletes how they feel about playing through pain. Here are their stories.
Yeah, last year I suffered a concussion and I felt the need to play through my injury to increase my chances of making the tournament squad.
Last year and this year, my coach, he's always pushing me to just play through anything, even if it's only if I can't actually properly keep moving.
I had an injury last year, had to get surgery, but I didn't want to actually get the surgery because it meant that I wasn't able to play for a long time. So there's more pressure on myself.
Do you feel your training schedule allows enough time for recovery?
If you're honest with your coach about your injuries, then they should give you time off to recover. But if you aren't honest and you are injured and you train, then you're not going to recover.
Personally, no. I'm on 3 different teams right now, so it's pretty hard to get any little rest days. I'll probably be lucky to get maybe 2 rest days in a week.
Have coaches or teammates ever discouraged you from reporting an injury?
No, not directly, but I've felt pressured to not tell them just based off my own thoughts and feelings on what's happened.
What would make you feel safer or more supported when dealing with injuries?
Just if coaches were a little bit more kind of clear that they care about your physical and mental well-being, and therefore you feel comfortable to tell them about these injuries.
How has playing through an injury affected you physically or mentally?
I don't know if it's physically affected me in a big way, but obviously it just doesn't heal as fast and then you can't play your best while you're playing on that injury.
But it's not always the pressure from teammates. Sometimes it's the system. Coaches have the tough job of pushing performance while protecting players.
How do you monitor players' health and avoid overtraining?
Each week they'll communicate with me where their loading sits, I guess, in terms of that. So some of them are more busy than others, so I have a good overview of their current structure. And I communicate with their physio as well. So the physio being at school is a helpful thing, so I talk to the physio around that.
What policies are in place if a player reports pain or injury?
So as soon as that happens, I get them to contact Balance Physio at school, and they go to the physio, and we start that process. So we're lucky around having the physio at school.
Do you ever feel pressure to keep injured players in the game for competitive reasons?
I'm lucky because I've been here long enough that I don't feel that pressure. And I think the players' health is the most important thing. So currently we have 3 or 4 boys that we're monitoring and sitting out of games until they've been signed off by the physio, and they all have loading plans to come back as well. So I think the players' health is the most important, long term. So that's where it sits with that.
Are there programs in place to educate athletes about injury prevention and recovery?
I think it's more just working with the coaches. So the answer is probably no, and I think that's probably something where the school probably needs to work a little bit around that in terms of players understanding their loading. The players are all dragged, especially in basketball, dragged in a lot of different directions. So I think in rugby as well, with rugby league, etc. with that. So because they're dragged in a lot of different directions, it means that they need that understanding, and they can train as much as they like outside of here without me knowing as well. So there is some important messages that they need to have around that. So I think that's a good thing the school potentially could look into, which would be helpful.
To understand the true risk, I turn to sports medicine professionals.
What common injuries do you see in youth or high school athletes?
I see two sort of main types of injuries. I see joint injuries, that's like an ankle sprain, a knee ligament sprain, and then I see a lot of tendon and muscles. So that's when someone, overloads, overstrides out.
How often do you see players returning to play too soon?
Maybe 10-20% of players may return too soon. I think if they're actually seeing a physiotherapist or a doctor, which more and more boys are, probably because they're quite serious about their sport. So most boys would have consulted a doctor or physio, and most probably follow that advice.
What signs do you look for that a player is being pushed beyond safe limits?
So I listen. I listen to what the boys are saying to me, because often that's how I pick it up, that there's a little bit of anxiety about going back to play. And then I've got signs that I know from their first assessment. So I've got signs of like pain, and then I do functional tests.
The pressure to perform is real, but so are the consequences of playing through pain. Injuries that linger longer after the final buzzer, opportunities lost to permanent damage, and careers ended before they truly begin. So there you have it. Are players being pushed too hard in terms of injuries? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zach Tucker and I am a Year 10 student at Christ College, and I am currently doing the Newsroom course. Today I'm going to talk about my investigative journalism topic. This is if electric cars are the future of transportation.
For the first person we reached out to Chris Bishop, the Transportation Minister of New Zealand, and he was unfortunately unable to go on a call with us, so we have Mick Stirwell voicing an email he sent us.
I drive a Nissan Leaf myself and have done since 2018. They make so much sense for New Zealand. We have a lot of renewable energy, so when you plug your car into charge, you are basically pumping water, wind, solar and geothermal energy into your car, not fossil fuels.
We are interviewing Dave from EV City, a man who owns and runs his own EV dealership. Let's hear his thoughts. What type of market are electric cars best suited for?
Good question. Certainly not all markets, but they are best suited currently for round town or city commuters. So things that mum and dad should be dropping their kids off at school in, going to the office, going to the supermarket, going to sports on Saturdays, and that's about it. They should be, city commuting vehicles.
Yeah, from what I've read, that sounds accurate. Is the product consistent in quality?
Yeah, very consistent. Certainly the stuff that's coming out of Japan and China, it's all made by robots. It's all very, very consistent. The great thing about selling EVs is how reliable and how durable they are, because we're obviously the dealer who sells them. If there's a problem with the car, we've got to fix it. And having years and years of history selling petrol cars, we now find that EVs cost us far less in warranty repairs. We never really have customers coming back to us needing us to repair the car they bought. They just don't break.
So I suppose there's not much you have to do when you work on them.
Yeah, very little required from a servicing or maintenance point of view, because they are such simple machines compared to, more complicated petrol or diesel vehicles.
Yeah. At the moment, with certain brands, do you find there's limited models available?
When we started our business back in 2019, you could not buy a brand new EV in New Zealand.
Wow.
Now there is over 100 options. So within 5 years or 6 years, it's gone from nothing available to over 100 options being available in New Zealand. So no, there is now plenty available, and most manufacturers have an EV or two or three available to buy. And that's really growing very, very quickly. There are so many available now, I don't know what half of them are called.
Oh yeah, that's very good. Do you get many people curious about the range anxiety? Like, are they working hard to increase the range on electric vehicles?
Yes, that's a good thing and a bad thing, Zach, because most manufacturers are trying to build electric vehicles that can go further, but they're doing that so that the people who are selling them can tell people that this car goes as far as your petrol car, to try and answer that question about range anxiety. Why that's a problem is because then we're increasing the cost of the vehicles by building cars with really, really big batteries, and we're only doing that so that salesmen can say, yes sir, this car does 500 kilometres per charge. What we should be doing is building cars which have 200 kilometres of range, which have smaller batteries, which are therefore much cheaper to produce, and all those minerals we were going to use to make one battery, we could now maybe make one, two, or maybe three batteries. Most people drive 28 kilometres per day. That's the industry standard in New Zealand, that most cars are only driven 28 kilometres per day. So if you have a car which only does 28 kilometres, have a need for only 28 kilometres a day, how big a battery do you actually need? Do you need a car that can do 400 k's a day because you only drive the kids to school, then to the office, and then to home and back? Why do you need such a big battery? And that's a question that some customers come into us and they say, you know, what about my trip to the Marlborough Sounds in the holidays? Will I be able to drive there without stopping? And we'll have to say, depending on the car, Zach, the answer is usually no. No, you'll have to stop once, or sometimes, car dependent, you'll have to stop twice. But the difference between buying a car which is inconvenient once a year when you have to drive to Picton, or buying a car which is really convenient every other day of the year, can be, double the price. You might have to spend twice as much money to get a car which has a really big battery, which you don't actually use, you only use once a year. Why wouldn't you think, hey, I'll buy the smaller battery car and stop for half an hour at a charger on the way up and on the way back, and I'll buy something that's the right size.
Yeah, that's very good reasoning, I believe.
Yeah, imagine being in a house with, how many brothers and sisters do you have, Zach?
I'm an only child, actually.
So you could really, your house could be, your home house could be maybe 2 bedrooms, couldn't it? You and your parents.
Mm.
So why have a 10-bedroom house? But some people think like that because they think, once a year when the family comes to visit from Australia or from Napier or wherever your family might come from, do you buy a house which can fit them all in once a year? Nope. So why do you have a battery which can drive you to Nelson or drive you to Picton once a year when the rest of the time you don't need it?
Yeah.
You could save all that money buying a small battery and fly to Nelson. It would still be much, much, much cheaper than buying a really big battery car. So yes, manufacturers are building bigger and bigger batteries. Some manufacturers are now trying to build smaller batteries so they can sell their cars cheaper to more people.
Hello, my name is George Wakeman and I'm a Year 11 boy at Christ College. My investigative journalism topic this year is the rise of Formula One in young New Zealanders. Throughout my investigation, I interviewed former Old Boys and university students Elliot Lee, Ollie Dutoit and William Wakeman.
How did you get into F1?
So I got into F1 because your brother Will introduced me to it and keep talking about it, and I was like, that sounds fun. So he actually introduced me to that film that Survive to Drive Fit, and then I watched it and I was like, oh, it's interesting.
Questions. What have you watched Drive to Survive? Do you think it's getting more people interested in Formula One?
I I think yes, because I think F1 has done a very good marketing in terms of their like media stuff. They got lots of like, like famous people onto the grid.
Do you notice, like last year and when you were at school, did you notice more people were talking about Formula One?
I think so, definitely. I think especially last year when people have started to talk about it more, because before last year I didn't even know about F1.
At uni, is there less or more people talking about it?
Oh, in uni. I think there's definitely people talking about it. I'm in the F1 club as well, like where every weekend we have a race and we will like go into a classroom and watch the race together.
Oh, how many?
Yeah.
How many people are in that?
Usually about 10, 20 people show up to the race weekends and we watch the race together.
And do you think Formula One is like more known and being more broadcasted because Liam Lawson is in it?
For sure, absolutely. We were so happy when Liam Lawson got into Red Bull, but then we were also disappointed.
Okay, the first question is, how did you get into F1?
I would mostly think from my high school experience with sort of friends and classmates. That's when I sort of first noticed F1 and sort of got quite involved with it as well. Going over to friends' places and they'll be watching F1, so I just was sort of intrigued about just how it worked and what the sport was. So yeah.
Did you notice when you were at school last year, were there lots of people talking about it?
Yep, I would 100% say that. A lot of classmates and not everyone was talking about it, but I would probably say a dozen people maybe, and from my year group and my classmates, I'd probably 12, and just
Do you think there is less or more people at university talking about it?
I think there is more people at university talking about it, but I am in a hall of residence, so I would say like there is a lot of people actually that do talk about it, like that probably a good 30 or 40 just in my hall, and then in the actual university I see more people sort of wearing Ferrari shirts or Mercedes shirts or caps or whatever. So I think there's certainly more people that know about F1 at university. Yeah.
At Canterbury, is there a Formula One like club in university for you guys?
I do not think so.
Do you think that Formula One is more known and like it's more broadcasted to New Zealanders now that Liam Lawson is in it?
Yep. Since Liam Lawson was in Red Bull and now he's in Racing Bulls, I think more people in New Zealand are engaged with F1 because he is a New Zealander. People want to be engaged in how he's going. So.
Okay, so the first question is, how did you get into Formula One?
I got into Formula One because a family friend suggested that we should watch Drive to Survive, and then we watched Drive to Survive, and I looked up Formula One on YouTube and started watching the highlights, and then that turned it into me watching the full races every weekend.
Did you notice more people talking about Formula One around school?
Yes, I did. I encouraged my friends to watch Formula One, but by that time there was a ton of people around school watching Formula One.
And how about uni? Do you think it is more or less people talking about it in school?
It's certainly noticeable there's more, but that may be because of the more people at uni. I've heard that you can't go to a lecture while the Formula One is on because you'll have spoilers because people will be watching the Formula One.
Do you think that Formula One is more known now that Liam Lawson is in it?
It is certainly more noticeable because there is a Kiwi driver on the grid, and for a brief time he was at a top 10, which made people more excited.
Have you watched Drive to Survive, and do you think that it is getting people more interested in Formula One?
I have watched Drive to Survive, as I said before, and Drive to Survive has made a big impact on the sport of Formula One because there has been a noticeable increase in the amount of people watch Formula One around the world. Significantly in America, the average people watching Formula One has increased from around 100,000 to 1 million people, plus on average every race. Plus the amount of women watching the sport has increased to just above 30%, which is noticeable because before it was normally